The beginning after the end outsold solo leveling in the United States, not for a week, consistently, and most people who haven't read it still think it's just another
In a
isekai.
world of
It
ancient
isn't.
magic, a
This is
young
the
soul
full
stands at the
story, and by
precipice
the
of
end of this
destiny.
video, you'll
With eyes that
understand
see
why.
beyond
This
time, he
video
gazes upon
covers
the path that
everything:
awaits.
the
The journey
reincarnation
begins
origin,
now.
Arthur's childhood and training, the magic system, Xyrus Academy, the Dicathen-Alacrya War, the truth about Agrona and Kezess, the Relictombs, Arthur's death and transformation, and the ending that split the community in half. Full spoilers, timestamps below. Before we start, a note: TBATE exists as a web novel, a manhwa, and a light novel. The anime adaptation covered a fraction of the story and was criticized for rushing it.
On the left,
Everything in this
low
video
quality
is based
anime
on the
delivered.
complete
On the
original
right,
work.
stunning manhwa
The anime
detail.
is not
Every
the
line
story.
counts with
This
emotional impact.
is. The story
Quality isn't
doesn't
just a
start with
difference,
Arthur
it's
Leywin.
everything.
It starts with King Grey, a powerful monarch in a world similar to ours. A man who rose from nothing to become the greatest warrior alive, feared and respected but fundamentally alone. He had power. He had a throne. He had no one he truly loved and no one who truly knew him. King Grey dies, and instead of whatever afterlife awaited him, he finds himself reborn, as a baby, in a completely different world. A fantasy world with magic, elves, dwarves, dungeons, and a power system built around monocores. He retains all his memories from his previous life. He is simultaneously a helpless infant and one of the most experienced warriors in existence. He is Arthur Leywin now, son of Alice and Reynolds Leywin, a former adventurer family. And unlike most isekai protagonists who spend years pretending to be normal, Arthur immediately begins training
Alert.
at
I see
age 2
everything.
because he has the mind of an adult king and the body of a
Near the
child with no ceiling on how strong he can become. His
Arthur,
goal
that's
isn't revenge or
incredible.
conquest.
How is
His
this
goal, for
possible?
the first time in 2 lifetimes, is something
I'm
much
so proud
simpler:
of you.
to not be alone. The magic system in TBATE is one of the most detailed in manhwa. Every person has a manicore, a physical object inside
Mother,
the body
father,
that
this is
determines
wonderful.
magical ability.
We're so
Cores are
glad,
ranked
son.
from F to
Yes,
SS.
my love.
Most people
I love
plateau.
you both.
Arthur, trained
We
with
love
the
you too.
discipline of a lifetime king, develops faster than anyone in recorded history. But even more unusual is what else he can access: ether, an energy that exists above and beyond normal mana, one that even gods struggle to control. Arthur also forms a bond with a creature no human has ever bonded with before: Sylvie, an
Fear not,
unborn
little
dragon
ones.
egg from
My light
Sylvia,
will
a
shield you.
legendary dragon
I
who
know,
sacrifices
don't leave
herself to
us.
save Arthur's
This is my
family.
gift. Remember
Sylvie
me, my
Hatch is
love.
bonded to
We will.
Arthur,
Thank
giving
you.
him access to dragon-level power amplification. But what nobody knows yet, not Arthur, not his family, is that Sylvie is the granddaughter of Kezess Indrath, the absolute ruler of the
Sky,
gods,
Sylvie.
and that her
So beautiful.
existence will eventually drag Arthur into a war between
Our adventure
divine
is just
factions that has
beginning.
been building for centuries.
We'll
His
explore
second
the world
life,
together.
just like his first, is not going to be simple. Arthur's childhood takes him from his hometown of Ashbur to Xyrus Academy, the most prestigious magic school on the continent. 3 races coexist in Dicathen: humans, elves, and dwarves. Tensions between them run deep. Xyrus is one of the few places they mix, and Arthur, trained since infancy
Impossible.
with the
He broke
discipline of
every
a
record.
king, walks in as a first year and immediately breaks
He
every
shattered the
record the
oldest ways.
institution has. At Xyrus, Arthur meets the people who become his core relationships: Tessia Aerolith, the elven princess, and his first love, heir to the Aerolith kingdom and one of the most powerful mages of her generation. Elijah Knight, his closest friend, a quiet, brilliant mage whose backstory becomes one of the darkest plot
Elijah,
twists
look
in the
at this
story,
place.
and Professor
Incredible.
Meyer,
It is.
who is
The
not what
magic
she
feels
appears
so
to be.
alive here.
The world building
With
of
you here, I feel ready for
TBATE is one
anything.
of its
We
greatest
will face it
strengths.
together.
Dicathen is divided into 4 kingdoms: Sapin, Elenoir, Darv, and Etistan. Each race has its own culture, politics, and relationship with mana. Arthur moves through all of them, as a student, as an adventurer, as a political figure, and eventually as something that doesn't have a category. The author treats this world as real.
Everyone, stay
Trade routes
sharp. Let's
matter,
move. Aye,
political
lead on.
alliances shift,
Archers
and the
cover the flanks.
decisions made by
Engage on my
kings in
signal.
early
Here's
volumes
why.
have
I've got this
consequences
one.
that pay off
We did
50
it.
volumes
Great work,
later.
team.
But the world
These
isn't
foraging
just
claims are a
beautiful,
violation of
it's
our
being
sovereignty.
watched
Your sovereignty
from
covers
above.
trade routes. We demand
Ephiotis,
carnage.
the
Peace.
realm
We're
of the
demanding unity,
Asuras,
not division.
beings of godlike power who consider humans, elves, and dwarves to be lessers. The Asuras are split into clans. The Indrath clan, dragons, rule them all under Kezess Indrath. The Vritra clan, basilisks, were exiled centuries ago to Alacrya, the second continent across the sea, for crimes against lessers. And the Vritra's leader, Agrona Vritra, has been planning his revenge ever since. Agrona's plan is centuries in the making. He discovered ancient texts from the Jinn, a race of mages who mastered ether before being exterminated by Kezess, who feared their power. Agrona learned from these texts. He also discovered Kezess's darkest secret. The Indrath clan committed genocide against the Jinn specifically to maintain their monopoly on power. Agrona uses this knowledge as leverage, but his real plan goes further. He orchestrates the reincarnation of 3 souls from another world into Dicathen-Alacrya. Gray, who becomes Arthur Leywin. A second soul, Nico, Arthur's childhood friend, who is secretly being groomed as Agrona's weapon, and Cecilia, who will eventually be used to possess the body of Tessia Erelith herself. The war begins. Alacrya invades Dicathen. Their armies are led by the Scythes, Alacryan elites of Nirasura-level power, and backed by Agrona's biological experiments, which have produced weapons that bypass conventional mana defenses entirely. Dicathen is losing. Fast, the 3 races, politically fractured for generations, struggle to unite. Arthur, still a teenager, becomes one of the most important military figures on the continent almost overnight. Then, Volume 4 happens, and this is the arc that separates TBATE from every other manhwa in the genre. Elenwar, the Elven Kingdom, Tessia's homeland, is destroyed, not damaged, destroyed, by the Indrath clan themselves. Kezess ordered Aldir to use the World Eater technique, a divine-level attack, to eliminate the legacy entity that had taken root there. He killed an entire civilization to solve a problem he partly caused. The Elven people, ancient, proud survivors of centuries, are wiped from the map in a single chapter. And then comes the second gut punch, Tessia. The woman Arthur loves is possessed by Cecilia, the legacy entity Agrona spent decades preparing. Cecilia takes over Tessia's body and becomes one of the war's most dangerous weapons. Arthur is now fighting an enemy that wears the face of the person he loves most. And somewhere inside that body, Tessia is still alive, trapped, watching everything happen. This is the arc where readers stopped comparing TBATE to solo leveling and started comparing it to tragedy literature. Meanwhile, Elijah's true arc is revealed. Arthur's closest friend from childhood was also a reincarnate, also manipulated by Agrona. But Elijah went further. He willingly chose Agrona's side. His reasons are complex, painful, and arguably understandable, which makes him TBATE's most tragic character. He isn't evil. He's someone who saw the truth about the gods before Arthur did and chose the wrong response to it. By the time Arthur understands Elijah fully, it's too late to bring him back. Arthur pushes too far. In a desperate battle, he channels Sylvie's beast will, a form of power far beyond what a human body can sustain, and burns himself out. He survives, barely, but the cost is catastrophic. Sylvie gives up her physical body, fusing her essence into Arthur to save him. He wakes up with a draconic body structure, ether capabilities beyond any Asura, and a new weapon, Regis, a sentient black sword created from ancient Jinn knowledge. But Dicathen believes he is dead, his family believes he is dead, and when he returns, the war has moved into a phase where even Arthur's new power may not be enough. Arthur returns to a Dicathen that has been partially occupied, not just by Alacrya, but by the Indrath clan's forces, who moved in under the pretense of protection. Kezess's deal with Arthur required Dicathen to host Indrath soldiers. Those soldiers did not treat Dicathen's people kindly. The people Arthur fought to protect are now living under a second occupation, and the god who ordered it is the same god providing Arthur's power training. This is TBATE's central thesis. There are no clean sides. Every power structure, including the one you're allied with, will compromise you. Arthur enters the Relictombs, ancient ruins left by the Jinn, filled with dimensional trials that push warriors beyond their limits. Inside, he meets Kara, an Alacryan from a high-ranking family who is also a prisoner of Agrona's system in her own way. Their reluctant alliance is one of TBATE's best character dynamics. Two people on opposite sides of a war, discovering they hate the same system. Arthur also learns the full truth about the Jin genocide, confirmed by Sylvia's hidden messages. Kezess killed them, not because they were dangerous, because they were free. Armed with this truth, Arthur's relationship with Kezess fractures completely. Kezess is not a protector. He's a ruler who eliminated any power that could challenge his control and has been managing Dicathen as an asset rather than protecting it as a home. Arthur begins operating independently of both divine factions. He builds his own alliances. He recruits Xyrus Academy, an Alacrian scythe, who has her own reasons to oppose Agrona. He develops his ether control to a level that should be impossible for any non-Ashura, and he starts to look less like a hero of Dicathen and more like a third power in a two-sided war. The final war escalates to godlike scale. Agrona reveals his ultimate plan. He wants to ascend beyond Asura level entirely to become something above the gods by harvesting ether from the continent itself. The casualties on both sides are staggering. Arthur's parents are endangered. His sister Ellie, who has developed her own power, is dragged into the conflict. The people Arthur spent 2 lifetimes trying to protect keep being put in the line of fire. And each time, the cost of protecting them rises. The confrontation with Agrona is Arthur's hardest fight, not because of raw power, but because Agrona knows Arthur completely. He designed him. He guided his reincarnation, chose his environment, allowed his bonds to form, all to create the perfect ether vessel. Arthur isn't just fighting an enemy, he's fighting the architect of his own existence. And yet, that's exactly why Arthur can win, because Agrona built him to be strong. He didn't build him to have something worth fighting for. That's the difference. Agrona falls. Kezess, exposed for his crimes against the Jinn, against Dicathen, against Agrona's people, disappears from the battlefield, not defeated, gone, choosing to vanish rather than face accountability. And Arthur, now possessing ether control beyond any living being, faces the same choice every previous power holder faced: become a new god or step down. He chooses to step down. He reduces his own power intentionally. He doesn't replace Kezess. He doesn't build an empire. He breaks the cycle of divine control over lesser races entirely and walks away. The ending is controversial for one specific reason. Arthur loses a significant portion of his power permanently. His overwhelming ether dominance is reduced as a consequence of choosing humanity over godhood. Some readers felt cheated. They'd followed his growth for hundreds of chapters. Others felt it was the only honest ending the story could have. Because TBATE was never about becoming the strongest. It was about becoming someone worthy of the life you have. King Grey was the strongest. He died alone. Arthur Leywin chose differently. What about Tessia? She survives. The legacy, Cecilia, is separated from her body in the final arc. Tessia returns to herself, carrying the trauma of what was done to her, but alive, free, and, in the ending, rebuilding alongside Arthur. Their relationship doesn't get a fairy tale resolution. It gets something quieter and more honest. Two people who went through unimaginable things, choosing each other anyway. Sylvie's essence, still part of Arthur, manifests in a new form, and Kara, the Alacrian who fought alongside Arthur, finds her own place in the new world. My take: TBATE earns its ending more than solo leveling does, and its ending is more flawed. The final arc moves fast. Some lore threads don't close cleanly. The cosmic elements introduced late in the story needed more time, but the emotional core is intact. Arthur begins as a king who had everything and felt nothing. He ends as a man who chose less power so he could feel everything. That's the title, the beginning after the end. Not a rebirth story about getting stronger, a rebirth story about learning what strength is actually for. Next on the channel, the full ORV breakdown, the solo leveling power system ranked, and a deep dive into why TBATE outsold solo leveling in the US while most Western fans still haven't heard of it. Links on screen. Drop a comment. Do you think Arthur's power reduction was earned? Or did the story owe him more? I read every single one.